half. I promise not to take more than half an hour, so you'll still get out while there's daylight outside, so 8 o'clock is still a reasonable amount of time to get out. And also, these are one of the topics where you won't learn by watching me talk about it. It's one of those things that I hope you do go off, if you have an Azure subscription already, or if you want to get it for free, which you can, you go off and explore some of these ideas, because these are really good areas to think of the basics and about the foundations of what you want to build out. I mean, I find the cloud, it's really easy to do things badly. You can spin up VMs and do all sorts of things very quickly, assign everything public IP addresses, RDP to everything. It's great, and then people wonder why the machines get compromised. So these are the kind of ideas that you want to have a good feeling for about why they're important and what you should be thinking about when you're building out your environment. So continuing on with the discussion, we've already talked about briefly why governance is important, what Azure governance is important, and why governance in any environment, whether it's whatever cloud or on-prem, is important. Companies find it more confusing, governance in the cloud, and also they have this impression that, well, because Microsoft or AWS has all these certifications and standards that they've passed, somehow they're protected, and it doesn't work like that. All it means that Microsoft has passed those doesn't mean your environment has. Companies that have all these VMs, which is one of the clients I'm talking with right now, they simply want to take all the VMs that they have on-prem with public IP addresses for their web server, with public IP addresses for RDP connectivity, and move it to the cloud with the same model. And think that they feel that they'll be fine because they're on Azure. I said, well, no, you're just as vulnerable as any other environment with public IP addresses and web servers running with public IP addresses and access without a firewall or anything, app gateway or anything else like that, like a web access firewall. I think it creates a sense of confidence, and what happens is that companies end up doing things very, very badly, very, very quickly in the cloud that they may have thought twice about on-prem. So, again, just my little cautionary tale about what's out there. So what I'm going to move on is to a few more, actually the last two topics, and I'm actually speaking at the Global Azure Bootcamp this Saturday, so then I have two sessions. So the first one is, which you're seeing right now, so this is a chance for me to practice and work on all the rough edges and get ready for that talk. There's more people there. There'll be like 50 or 70 people at my session there. So thank you for going through all that pain with me. The second half of that talk I'll be giving on Global Azure Bootcamp on Saturday will be more of the hands-on. So I'll be talking about things like Azure Blueprints, which is coming up, and a few other things that I'll be showing interactively, just because there's more time to actually do that. But again, watching me do it will not help you actually learn it anymore than the concepts I've just gone over. The real way you want to do it is you want to get on there with your hands and get your free subscription if you don't have one, and start practicing trying some of these ideas out. Okay? So we talked a lot about, not a lot, but enough to go over some of the key ideas. There's two that have come out which are still in preview. They're not GA'd yet. And that's what I'll be talking about shortly. So this idea of a cloud factory. And the idea is that you have ARM templates, you have PowerShell, you have some sort of scripting type of environments. Those are great, but they're not a full solution. Right? For example, if you want to deploy a full, sophisticated virtual data center in Azure, using ARM templates and PowerShell, or maybe even something like Terraform, you could do it. It may not be simple, and you may not get quite what you're expecting. You may need some manual intervention. What Microsoft is trying to do is change that with something called Azure Blueprints. So Azure Blueprints is meant to roll up all of these different ideas, things that you would have done manually, through the portal, through PowerShell, through ARM templates, some sort of combination of all those, and give you a full solution, including things like RBAC roles, role-based access control, all that composed into what they're calling an Azure Blueprint. So I'm not sure if anyone has heard that. Blueprint is actually a common word used in a lot of these type of cloud or any type of high-density VM type environments. But Azure Blueprints really is an attempt by Microsoft to give you a true blueprint where once you deploy that, it will build out everything for you, right down to the policies, to the tags, to the RBAC aspects of it. You can reuse your ARM templates. You can put in snippets of code that need to be executed at the same time. The VMs can be deployed along with artifacts for that. So this is where they want to go. This does not replace ARM. It doesn't replace PowerShell or anything else like that. What it does, it gives you this broad solution framework that can be deployed. Yes?
What's ARM?
Oh, it's Azure Resource Manager. There was a little slide early on that talked about that, but ARM is their new JSON-based formatted files for building out resources. So when you build out anything in Azure Portal or anything else, underneath there, it's actually building out an ARM template in Azure Resource Manager template. And that's available for download later. Even if you just build it out visually, it's always available to you as part of that, because that's a fundamental part of building out anything in Azure.
You mentioned Terraform.
Yes.
So anything that Terraform that can do with Terraform can I do with PowerShell?
That's a good. I haven't actually used Terraform myself. I know Terraform has come a long way, and actually Microsoft has extensively worked with HashiCorp, I believe, which is the one who is responsible for Terraform, to make it as powerful as possible as a tool for building out what Azure Blueprints does as well. So they're not trying to take anything away from Terraform. They're trying to give something that's very native and very specific to Azure. While Terraform is meant to be, I think one of the reasons people like it is that it allows you to target multiple environments, Azure, AWS, GCP, and so on. And I think even non-cloud environments, I'm not sure. But Terraform has come a long way to do that. And Azure Blueprints is doing basically the same idea, but it's targeted only in Azure. And it uses the technology that most people have encountered already before. ARM templates, Azure policy definitions for controlling and providing guardrails around features and functionality. So the idea is that you can use Azure Blueprints to build up everything, right, from the subscription, management groups, everything, like a full virtual data center. And when I mean that, I mean we're talking about a very complex environment with multiple managed services, managed databases, web app services, VMs, anything that you can think of in that capacity, you can actually do with Azure Blueprints. And it's their answer to Terraform. Even though they're not trying to take anything away from Terraform, this is meant to be something that's very specific, very native to Azure and built into it. There is also something very interesting about Azure Blueprints. I'm not sure if I'm getting ahead of myself here, I think I am, but one of the key parts about Azure Blueprints is that it has this concept of versions. You could have build together, you could, first of all, just like anything else with Microsoft, they have a whole slew of Azure Blueprints already available. And a lot of them are built around ISO standards, HIPAA standards, and if you're in the US and medical industry, SOC standards for financial services, PCI for financial services, all these different standards, they have blueprints that you can build out that will build out a very sophisticated environment from the network all the way through to firewalls and everything else structured, NSGs, UDRs, all those kind of definitions of a network from the base level up to build out something that's compliant with those standards. The idea with these blueprints is that it gives you something that is more than just an ARM template for a piece of functionality or some PowerShell script. It becomes very fragmented and it becomes very hard to manage that in a cohesive fashion, even if you put it all under version control. Azure Blueprint allows you to put all this together as one set of functionality for deployment and also versioning. So what that means is that you can have a version 1.0 of your base blueprint, you can have a 1.1, 1.2, and so on, that has more and more layers of functionality. And what's nice about that is that you could say that you want to roll back to a previous version, you could do that. It will automatically do a delta of the difference between one version of your blueprint to another and be able to roll it back or roll it forward accordingly. What it also does, it allows you to check drift in your environment. So if you have standard, let's say you're on version 1.2 of your environment that's being used across multiple environments for dev, staging, production, and so on, and you find that the staging environment is drifted off from 1.2, you can actually use the Azure Blueprint to bring it back up to that same version. So in many ways, it's like Azure desired state configuration. And you find that a lot of these services are starting to overlap depending on what way approach you're using to do that. I believe Terraform has those same type of capabilities as well. I'm not sure because I haven't worked with Terraform. But the idea is that you need more control over your environment as it starts drifting off. Where it's not, policies alone may not be adequate, but it's like Azure Blueprints to wrap all of that together, it gives you a very powerful mechanism to manage that environment where people alone cannot do that in a practical way without providing a huge block to any type of work in progress. So that is what Azure Blueprints are about. Again, it's a JSON file, and the format of it, and it's designed to work at a scale that is in the hundreds or thousands of subscriptions. So it's a very powerful mechanism. And there's some great content. If you go to that link I showed you previously for Azure Docs and Azure Governance, you'll find that there's a great set of videos, great set of examples that you can actually walk through. And actually, even if you watch some of the 20-minute videos, you'll have a huge appreciation for what they're trying to do. It's still in preview, but again, it gives a sense of maturity that Azure has come to a certain point where it can support these type of technologies, and they understand that the enterprise needs these type of requirements in place. So the next topic here, resource visibility. The reason why, like I said, going into a demo of this would take longer than I would want to hold anyone for. And really, I think that once you understand the concept, you'll be able to actually do this very quickly. You'll find that on the Azure Doc pages, on Azure Governance and especially Azure Blueprints, there are a lot of examples of code that if you wanted, if you have a free subscription, they can actually deploy one of the blueprints, and you'll build out various different types of designs for you based on what standards or what examples you're looking for. So resource visibility. Now this one is an interesting one. Azure Resource Graph. One of the things I find is that in any sort of non-trivial environment, people really don't know what they have in there. Like even within one resource group that has just one VM, that could be a dozen to 20 different elements in resources within the resource group supporting that VM. The question is, what happens when you have hundreds of thousands of subscriptions? Or what happens if you're a cloud service provider, CSP, where you're managing multiple tenants on Azure, where suddenly you're now responsible for thousands of subscriptions across hundreds of clients? How do you query and find out exactly what is going on in those environments, or how do you help a client find out what they're doing and help them understand what kind of build they ended up with why, beyond simply the costing tools available? The resource graph capability allows you to do almost in real time querying across vast amount of resources in just a few seconds, usually 5 to 10 seconds. So, for example, this is the topic right here. So it allows you to explore. So the best way I like to think about Azure Resource Graph, if anyone has used log analytics and the querying language for log analytics, or if anyone has worked with SQL Server and SQL syntax, you know that kind of idea where a simple set of statements can query against a very large amount of data and very complex environments across multiple tables and multiple databases, and be able to extract very quick results very efficiently. Currently, you can't do that in Azure. Whether you're using the API or PowerShell, you'll start hitting rate limits where you simply, one, cannot get the information you want. You can't keep hitting that API, or using PowerShell to do that, you start hitting rate limits where you suddenly get cut off or you get crawled back. So with Azure Resource Graph, you do not have that issue. One is that you, first of all, get extremely powerful results as far as data, but you get it back in a realistic timeline. One of the examples that they gave was that before Resource Graph was available, actually it came out of an internal need Microsoft had as well, which is they were trying to find out across their thousands and thousands of subscriptions what a very detailed breakdown of everything they had across all of the cloud environments in Azure. They hired someone for 1 month who had expertise and skills to do it, but after a month of attempting to do it manually through various API methods and PowerShell and so on, just gave up. It was simply not practical to do so. So Resource Graph came out of that, which is meant to allow you to do almost close to real-time querying of resources across vast amount of resources across resources and subscriptions in almost real-time, the way you would expect from SQL Server or log analytics, some sort of really responsive time frame for the data to come back. So it allows you to explore, so you can do quick, fast, ad hoc exploration of large cloud environments. You can query and analyze all this data. It's all command line based. It is not GUI based, but you can actually export that data as CSV, JSON, XML, and you can bring it into Excel, you can take it into Power BI, you can import it into SQL Server if you wanted to, and you can create some really powerful different graphs and different types of tooling. But right now it is all command line driven, so it's not something you use exploring wise, but you'll be surprised in about 2 minutes you'll be up and running queries against your resources with some of the examples that they provide on the Azure Resource Graph Azure Docs page. The other thing you have the ability to do is the ability to assess the impact of applying policies in massive cloud environments. So one of the things we talked about was how management groups complement, as a great complement for Azure policies, where you have higher levels of hierarchy to manage that against. How Azure Blueprints allow you to build out management groups as well as subscriptions and policies and roll them all out in one approved version and be able to find deviations of your environment from those Azure Blueprints. Azure Resource Graph also gives you another ability, which is to do ad hoc impact analysis of deploying, say, an Azure policy. Let's say you decide that you want to shut down or move away from a certain type of VM size. Let's say you want to get away from a certain VM size for whatever reason, cost, functionality. And you can actually do, before you start applying an Azure policy to start, one, to prevent any more VMs from being built out. Most companies would have no idea how many VMs of that class that they have on Azure. Using something like Azure Resource Graph, you could actually query it and tell it you want to find out, what VM type you have of its class, size, memory, OS, all those like very fine details, just like you would do any sort of SQL query, and it'll give you back a number within usually 5 to 10 seconds. So you can have an immediate understanding of what kind of that impact that policy would have. So if you comes back with, say, that VM size only has 10 instances that are available, you know that this is not going to be a hard policy to enforce, and the migration from one VM type to another should not be a challenging prospect. But if you get back to like 1,000 or 2,000 VMs that are running, fully on and running, that becomes a question. And most companies can't tell that. They have no idea whether they have 10 or 1,000, 100. This gives you the ability to actually make very intelligent decisions about things you want to deploy as far as Azure policies, or change any type of cost management options you want to do as far as VM sizes, or anything else you want to do as far as Azure resources. This gives you the tools to do real-time ad hoc analysis and proactively understand the impact of running a policy against those kind of environments that you want to do. So what does it look like to get Azure Resource Graph up and running? Well, you can do it through PowerShell. You can also use Azure CLI. In this case, using the PowerShell gallery, using install module named az.resourcegraph, and then that is all that's required to install it. And if you want to get a list of the commandlet version and information on it, you can just use that second command, get -command module az.resourcegraph commandlet. You'll find there's a whole set of examples like this throughout the documentation, and also much more elaborate queries that you use to get data back. So one of the ones I ran, which is one of the examples they have, is a query that does a summarization count of the number of resources within a subscription. So that number, 1,958, came back in about 3 seconds. So you're talking about real-time performance, where you actually query the way you a large database, except there's without that lag. If you ever try to find out the number of resources in a subscription or multiple subscriptions, you'll find that it's surprisingly more difficult than you would expect, and takes a lot longer than you would expect as well. And so this gives you that chance to do real intelligence gathering about your environment that is very, very powerful and very functional. And this gives you an idea of a more detailed example where you can set the type of, for example, on Microsoft virtual machines, you want the properties of the name as well as the OS type, and you want the top 5 and the name in descending order. This will return you back in an environment that had, I forget, several hundred VMs that was running in this environment that it was using. It gave the top 5 back in about less than 10 seconds with that information and the properties. I could have provided for a lot more properties, and it would work just as fast. So this gives you an idea of what Azure Resource Graph does. So this gives you, I would consider this the intelligence tool, the ad hoc intelligence tool that you use to be able to understand the impact of what these kind of changes in your environment will have. And also, more importantly, it allows you to ask basic things that I find generally in any environment or any company I've spoken to or worked with. Basic questions like, how many Linux boxes do you have? How many are you using manage this? Without them going off for a week to try to figure that out. If they can, this is something you can just run with some, actually most of the examples that they provide, which are quite extensive, that would probably answer 90% of the basic questions most companies would have about the environment, that you can now do with a few few simple string commands using Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI. There's no GUI for it, but it allows you to provide that level of intelligence and ad hoc queries that really reinforces that whole idea of Azure Governance and allows you to be more proactive in your planning of Azure policies and any other features and functionalities you want to use for Azure Governance. So that is the end of this talk. So I'm actually a little earlier, so not having demos goes a long way, but I'm open to questions. I'm happy to answer any questions I can. Everyone's good? Well, thank you so much for coming out. I hope you go off and explore some of this yourself, especially if you use Azure. These are, actually all the things you saw here are free. There's actually no charge for any of these features. Azure Resource Graph, Azure Blueprints, Azure Policy, Management Groups. Actually, even the early set that I just talked about, the early aspects of using things like Azure Tags, using resource groups in a meaningful way, all those features are free. You're not actually paying for any of those. But it's surprising how many companies are not aware of them, and companies that are aware of them, how little they use of them, and how much more complicated their lives are as a result of that. So thank you for coming out. I hope you found this useful, and we enjoy exploring it later. Thank you. Yes?
Just another question. Azure Blueprints, seems like that would be useful to have some kind of pre-organized set of features for something, whether it's like a full stack application. Is that something that you think could eventually be used for that through Marketplace or something, like deploy a full stack for some software application, or maybe some Azure directory kind of infrastructure?
Yes, no, actually that's a good point. I mean, I have not seen them giving examples of it, but I'm assuming that there should be no restrictions on being able to deploy Azure Marketplace functionality as well as part of that process. They have not spoken about it, and I have not actually seen it myself. But the idea is that it's meant to be a fully comprehensive solution. The idea is that anything you would painstakingly create over time, they'll be able to capture in Azure Blueprint, version it, and then also be able to use it to track any deviations from that blueprint over time. So it's not even generally available yet, but it's extremely powerful already, and surprisingly very fast as well. Meaning that you're not paying for any additional overhead that would be from a VM or anything else, or this. There's very little overhead we've seen from some things I've run through. So I only expect it to be, as powerful as anything available on Azure to build out. If you build it out on Azure manually, PowerShell, API, whatever you do, Marketplace, you should be able to do it with Azure Blueprint sometime in the coming feature release cycle. Yes, George.
To learn this, can you do it in Microsoft Learn, or you have to deploy your own stuff and then use this for free?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if they have this on Azure, Microsoft Learn yet. I know they do have lots of videos on the Azure Docs pages on this content and how to work with it. But no, I'm not sure if they have that yet on those, including some of those hands-on labs that they have some free services too. I'm not sure if they have this available yet. But I always find that the best thing is to get a free subscription and run it then. The good thing is that if you're not deploying anything that actually costs anything like a VM, actually using a lot of these is free. So, any other questions? Great, well thank you very much.